Hello and welcome to Our View, A Woman's Perspective, the show where real women are coming together to talk about topics that are not so black and white. Women who recognize that we are navigating a world of 1,000 grays. And today is no such exception. We're going to be talking about manolescence. I know you've never heard of it. Don't worry, we'll get to that. But first, let me introduce to you my wonderful co-hosts. I'm here with Radine, Mia, and Shazi, and we are going to try and pick apart a topic that isn't quite as obvious as it seems. So many people want to look at our young men now and say that they're not doing this, they're not doing that. But really and truly, are they victims of what society is pushing on them? Let's dive in and take a closer look. Ladies, who wants to start?
So I have a question. This is some of the first moments I'm hearing manolescence. Who even came up with that, and where did that come from?
I don't know, but I'll tell you, I think it's a woman.
Really?
Blame the woman for everything. Blame the
What
woman.
if it happens to be a man that just, sees a different point of view from what he represents, and he represents that mature adult, and he came up with this term for people that doesn't share the same view as him.
But what's the term? Like, what does that mean? Like, manolescence? Like, is that a state of being? Is that a mindset?
It comes from adolescence, which are, as obviously, but I just consider it that stretch in between when you have a young man and he has to rise to the occasion, step into his adulthood, step into his manhood, and become a man. But at the same time, we say that, but that sounds very limited, because I'll be very clear in saying this can definitely apply to women too.
Yeah.
That failure to
so
launch.
then we have this term kind of representing that universal term, that Peter Pan syndrome.
Yeah, like, that's what I got to say.
That's what I'm familiar with,
It's
yeah.
the Peter Pan syndrome that most people may have heard, and they may have watched the cartoon and they can relate to it. But it's really simply put.
Yeah, but then
men frozen in time. It's men frozen in time.
But then
They
is
just-
it a specific terminology towards this, or is it traits that actually men kind of show, and is it traits that represent, manolescence?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a range of traits.
So
and the subsequent
sorry.
stress. The traits and the stress. The traits and the stress. The traits and the stress that has come from it.
It's funny when you dig a little bit beneath the surface, right? So, I mean, the majority of people have actually watched Peter Pan in their youth. Maybe they don't remember it that well. I definitely fall in that category. But we do remember Peter Pan telling Wendy, I never want to grow up. We do remember Captain Hook as like this kind of pathetic tyrant. We remember there's a crocodile in there somewhere.
And what about Tinkerbell?
And I will Tinkerbell.
You can't forget. You can't forget. We have to talk about Tinkerbell. We can't forget Tinkerbell.
She's not perfect, but we'll get to that.
But she's there with Peter.
So then we
She's
see
Peter
some, some, if not most, or all of these characters actually being displayed with traits that kind of revolve around manolescence.
Correct. And the thing is, what's the one thing that all of the characters are afraid of is this crocodile who has a clock in his belly. So you're hearing this tick.
Symbolism.
I like the symbolism.
As a kid, you're just taking it in like, wow.
I just thought it was a scary
maturity.
crocodile with a clock in its belly, but now I see the symbolism behind that, and
Correct.
it's time. It's
Correct.
time.
The
Yeah.
second of time.
Yeah.
So one of the theories they have is that they call it arrested development. Do y'all believe that? Because it's not actually a term, right? So they call it
Correct.
so they're frozen in time. So it's like a boy in a man body, and
And
we will
it's
discuss
important that we
more.
point that out, that
Yeah.
while we're discussing this today, it's not actually a clinical
That is what I
diagnosed
said.
term. This is something that we're observing a trend, we're observing a phenomenon, and it's unnerving, but to say it's a clinical term or a scientific definition, no. But there are groups of traits.
Then we can also say that there are clinical terms that can define manolescence.
Definitely.
And, kind of touch base with what's happening during manolescence, what they go through. So there are things that tie back to being clinical problems. that they
Exactly.
face.
I know that this is an issue that affects the majority of relationships. 70% of romantic partners feel that they are frustrated with the lack of maturity and accountability in their relationship shown by their partners. So this is affecting men and women both, but is it just mostly about men?
I think people tend to think, it's more men than women, because how often do we hear women saying, oh God, my husband is such a baby. Why you such a little boy?
We
Why you doing
infantilize
so?
men and we emasculate them, and then we get angry when they don't step up to the
do
challenge.
we get angry or do we
It's
call them how we
women
see
out there that
them?
want to be princesses for the rest of their life too.
Touche.
So it's not to say it's just men alone that we're seeing this issue. There are a lot of women out there who just don't want to accept grown-up responsibilities.
Yeah.
I mean, my mother will.
Oh, that's Sarah, no.
But she will complain. She will say, Sarah, you need to learn how to do your taxes properly. Do not call me and harass me about these things or about your annual returns, things like that.
That's the problem with
so I
this.
have to admit, everybody has a little bit of it.
That's the problem with this, being able to identify that women actually go through this and go through manolescence, but you don't hear about it more often. So are there undiagnosed cases that we just don't speak about it because it occurs more in men, and it is more entertaining to talk about men suffering from manolescence?
Is there a female counterpart to Peter Pan, like a Polly Pan or some sort of alliteration?
We didn't find a Polly out there. But
Tinkerbell, maybe.
Tinkerbell
I don't
is
know.
just-
We're gonna take her
Yeah.
apart. We'll
Yeah.
definitely dig into that.
We will.
But I think it's important to look at the external factors that are leading to this, like the economy. Has totally changed. Having a single income household is like
It's a very strenuous
it's
thing.
almost impossible now for people our age. So men are feeling hopeless. They're feeling emasculated. They don't want to acknowledge the truth.
Yeah.
But the reality is like what I was saying about leaving behind your youth for adulthood and that sacrifice you have to make. It's inevitable and it's going to come at some point. If it comes when you're 20, fine, but there's nothing attractive about an adult baby who's 35 and 40 who has no skills, no job experience, no responsibilities. It
Yeah, but
gets
then
ugly
when
in the end.
does it become a problem that you're actually complaining about it? Because there are people that kind of set in their ways and they're comfortable with being that way, and that works for them. So when does it actually become a problem?
Well, and that's what I want to address. I disagree with you, Sarah, that it's all external factors. I think external factors, like pressure bust pipes, I think external factors are just a pressure point of the internal socialization and factors that we happen in childhood, right? So you're thinking of absent fathers and overbearing mothers. And you're thinking of these boys growing up in these homes facing adverse childhood experiences, growing up, and then now when they reach the stage of adulthood, or they reach the stage where we want a real relationship, be a man, put a ring on it. Why are you waiting so long?
That's
You
what I
sell
was
my
saying.
dream.
So
What's
it's
going
basically
on?
traits that define this term, because then you have traits that are being normalized throughout their childhood that they take with them
Oh my
into
God, yes,
adulthood.
yeah.
I want to hear what
Can
you
I
think
say
about this.
maybe a controversial opinion?
Oh, gosh,
right?
go.
Nobody.
No, we
nobody
live in controversy.
Nobody
We want
stay-
controversy.
Nobody
Yes,
stay-
Trinidad. We want in Trinidad and Tobago.
Nobody
We
stake
want
me
it,
for this,
yeah.
but this is, I know Trinidad and Tobago is a very matriarchal, society.
I think Trinidad Public, they're super friendly, lovely.
Yes,
they don't
yes,
know
yes,
what's
yes.
The mothers, the mothers.
I think mothers are usually the catalyst for their sons behaving like this, because one, they overbaby their sons because they want them to stay home and rely on the mothers because they're not getting enough love from their husbands.
Yes, you know what they call that?
And I know
They call it mother-son enmeshment, where there are no boundaries between the mother and the son, and whatever the mother failed to do. Now, in all
And the son
fairness,
has never grown up with a responsibility, so
But-
then it's time for him to leave the house
but
and have a
listen.
woman, then they do not have any
Listen.
social capacity to keep responsibility
but
moving.
me, it gets even worse. Like, this is where the son is a victim because the mother
Really?
must have failed to launch. She must even find a good man. And then looking at the poor boy and expecting him to take care of her.
Okay, but
all the
then
way.
are we telling mothers how to mother their sons? Are we telling them don't treat your son how
Yeah.
you want to treat your
Yeah,
son?
we're
Because
telling
when
them.
we get into that situation where you yourself have a child,
Yeah, judgment.
you are going to
Judge
be the
me.
one that is babying your son, and then you are on the flip side of the coin where you're saying, no, don't tell me how to mother my
Please.
child.
When does it,
And
when does it
Shazzy,
become a
judgment,
disservice? When does it
judgment,
become a disservice, right? To your son.
This
It
is my point.
becomes-
He doesn't launch because
when you
he's
do
so busy.
everything for them.
No, but
you
he's so
know?
busy taking
No, I think it becomes a disservice
Ah.
when he gets into a relationship, because it's all well and fine until he's in that bubble.
Peter
so when
Pan
he leaves
always
that
needs a
bubble,
Wendy. He can't exist without a Wendy because the things have to, the laundry has to be done.
Yeah.
So there has to be
You know
somebody
what?
who's
but I think
doing
there are
these things
multiple
to enable
rules
the
to Wendy,
problem.
not just that
You
mother
know?
role.
Well, you know what?
Correct.
I think.
Correct.
We
I
have-
think we're touching on the topic right now, as in we're waxing warm, because definitely you can't have a conversation with like this without talking about how these stunted men are affecting women and how these women are
affecting
creating
men.
stunted men.
Yeah,
you know, they're just too interlocked. It's like that snake that's eating its tail.
Exactly.
So let's start to untangle
So,
this after the break.
Welcome back to Our View, A Woman's Perspective, where we're talking about manolescence and now Peter Pan syndrome.
And so much happening.
And so much is happening. Have any of you ever come across a Peter Pan, or maybe even dated a Peter Pan when
What,
you were
as in
younger?
like spotting one in the wild?
Yeah, I want to know what that looks
They're
like.
not
I
that
need to know what that
hard.
looks like.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, you can tell them a mile away because they have on some cartoon clothing.
Oh, Lord.
That's a key indicator.
Like
you
a-
know,
like
or
an
they like
anime
to watch,
something?
and I was about to say, and they like to watch, take in
I like a little
immature
anime.
content, you know? And I also think that's when you look at Marvel and all of these things, a lot of that is making money off of nostalgia because these manolescents are enjoying watching superhero movies from
But
their
you know
youth.
that woman who like that
You know,
Marvel
and of
movie
course,
too.
this woman too. I'm just
What I'm
saying.
saying, yeah, what I was
Right.
about to say
Yeah.
is that my problem, my issue with that is that you instantly started describing men because I mean it's instincts to go towards men. But what about the
Totally.
women? What about the women who show and display those manolescence qualities?
I think a key indicator of a woman in manolescence,
right.
she likes to party in her 40s, like going club. That to me,
You talking to Trinidadian woman?
I'm talking about club until 2-3 a.m. on
Trinidad
on a
culture.
Thursday night.
Right now, somebody planning to go to the club this
On a
weekend.
Thursday
And
night,
they're
on a
in
Wednesday
their
night, on a
40s.
Thursday
Oh,
night.
but you talking about, but you're
Well,
not.
that's not even it though.
No,
that's not even it.
Nah,
though.
I'm like, there should be a moment
Nah.
where you're done doing that.
In
Nah,
true
nah,
our
nah,
view
nah.
context, let me
Nah.
just bring some context here.
Is that-
Mia's upset because she didn't come out with me this weekend and we were
That
supposed
is
to
what
go out.
happened.
And I'm
And now
vexed with Sarah
this is
Jane.
why she's upset at 34. I went out for the first time in 6
And
months.
she didn't carry me.
No.
But anyways,
but no,
as we going back,
having a party culture does lead
Contribute
to
to
that.
this,
Because
contribute
every
to this.
weekend you can party.
Well,
Exactly.
my thing is, right, she's having an issue with that, but then we don't see an issue with men going to the bar. So it's kind of double-sided for me that, you know, people have an issue with women going out and partying because she says it puts them under that category of being manolescent. But then we don't have an issue with men liming and drinking. Substance abuse is something that is directly affected by having that manolescence qualities.
yeah.
So
Well, Shazia,
it's two sides of a coin.
yeah,
Well,
Shazia,
I want to
that's
also
what-
preface that I don't mean like going out once, right? I'm talking about like every weekend for some like constantness,
but-
right? Thank you.
But-
I like to party
That's
myself.
fine,
He's
but
like, I go out.
But
I
I
go
think,
out.
I think we're touching on an important point here of where culture intersects with this phenomena that we're exploring.
And how we capitalizing
Because
it,
maybe
yeah.
in another culture, you know, partying and wearing your short pants if it's a woman and going in a bikini take to parties every weekend and you have child, that might not be kosher, but in Trinidad that might be cultural. But I think what we're getting at is if a man has a family at home, right? You married to the man. I think that's what it is. You married to the man. You just pushed down a baby, and he there partying every weekend, hanging with his friends.
Yeah.
You have bills to pay. He talking about I need to get rims for my car. The baby need formula, something like
Yeah,
that. What's
but,
going on
okay,
here?
but my issue with that is how did you not know, how did you not see these traits before you went and make a baby for this type of man?
Well, maybe it's a
so
religious
when did
guilt.
it become a problem that you are directly affected and then you start speaking about it?
Shazi, that's a great question.
I am
So
totally
these men
seeing
don't just
what you're
one day
saying.
wake up and say, yeah,
Yeah.
I have traits of manolescence. No, they have these traits maybe
Embedded.
years, maybe going back to their childhood, and you just choose not to see that
Oh.
beforehand.
But what they say, women want men to change and men want women to stay the same. So sometimes women's journey, maybe to the ring, allows them to overlook stuff. Maybe they didn't live with the man. Maybe it was fun. And then when they get married and they put down the baby, now they expect the man to automatically, just like this.
But
Grow
then
up.
we
And-
become a part of the problem. women are putting men on a pedestal, and then when that pedestal does not benefit you, you want to take him off.
Well,
but
they
you
have
can't just kick
unrealistic
down the
expectations,
pedestal.
possibly.
But
You
can I tell
cannot
you
just kick down the pedestal.
why
Tell us
they
more.
have unrealistic expectations? When most Peter Pans that I know are dating women much, much younger than them.
Think about it.
Listen.
No, because younger
Enter the stage,
younger
right?
women are in that lifestyle now. And they see older men that they do not recognize as Peter Pan. I have friends that are dating Peter Pan.
No,
Oh, so you
I
thought-
have, I know that,
Okay.
yes, I know them.
So
And
you
it's
talk
They're
about
like 40,
it's
50 years
fun
old.
for 5 minutes.
Well,
Exactly.
right,
and
and that-
after that,
It's not
like,
sustainable.
again,
It's not
you
sustainable.
know what? And I
at
think
all.
that's an important
Not
part.
sustainable.
Those young women dating a Peter Pan with money, because we need to also drive the point home that these Peter Pan things, it's not just, they're immature, but they can be very successful. Right, as we were saying, like the
And it's a
Leonardo
mask
DiCaprios
almost.
of
It's
the
almost a
world.
facade. You think that, oh, they have the money, so they want
Or
to
they
do.
mature, no,
They're not
career
they're not-
success.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's
It's
not
not
equal
personal,
social responsibility.
yeah.
And that's why I was
Socio-emotional
asking,
success.
are there traits that define that terminology, manolescence? Because then you can have a successful man with the
Exactly,
mindset of a
and that
child.
is-
You can have someone with the mindset of a child, and they're not working, or they don't want to work, they don't want to accept responsibility. So it kind of differs, because if you give each one of us a list and you say, here's a pen, make a list of all the traits you think represent manolescence, every single one of us are going to have different answers on that
That-
list.
that is so
Correct. Because
true.
of what responsibility means to us ourselves.
Exactly.
And I
Right.
think we also won't agree on what is their fault
Right.
and what is our fault.
So we are
You
not
know what I
willing
mean?
to
So true.
accept.
So it's not, and again, that's why you can't get into clinical terminology, because it's just not a concrete thing, but it's just something we're seeing, we're experiencing, so it's like another one that we haven't discussed that's a very clear symptom is handling conflict really
That is what I wanna
badly.
talk about.
So whether it's
I
ghosting,
want to
so
talk
total
about that,
avoidance, or temper tantrums, or
Yeah.
speaking extremely disrespectfully and just, or like running back to mommy, so there's a lot of different ways where you can look at somebody and say, this is the issue. For me now, I'm looking at it like, how do you tell who's a Peter Pan for life and who as a woman you can fix? Because you said, women always get together with men looking for them to to change. And men
Yeah.
always get together with women looking for them to stay the same forever. And women always change and men never do.
Yeah.
Women
That's the issue with
always change.
relationships.
I think the
So it's like,
problem-
what's that friction? How do we get Peter Pan to grow up?
Right, but the problem with that, in my opinion, is that we don't have discussions beforehand. We dive into things, especially women. We dive into things thinking. You have to see rather than think, because you cannot dive into a relationship without having that boundary set. Listen, I am not your mother. I am not your mother. If you set that boundary from the jump, so we basically put
Yeah.
the men in the position of being able to say, yes, I can be manolescence because this allows me to be manolescence. She allows me. She's giving me that comfort zone. But why are we putting them into that comfort zone and then complaining about it?
But may I empathize with the woman? I really think that it's easy, to sit down theoretically and blame the woman for everything. But I'm still saying, even though in today's society, especially in Trinidad, we're seeing a growing trend of people getting married later and living together and so forth.
Yeah,
I
hold on. I want to
okay.
support what you're saying,
Yeah, go
because
ahead.
literally 70% of young adults are feeling societal pressure to delay traditional milestones like marriage. 70%.
I'm one of
so
those,
this Peter Pan
She's
thing.
one of them.
I mean, I got married at 34, so it's only, and as we've discussed in other episodes, it's only now on the other side of it that I'm like, wow, I wish I did this sooner. My husband and I are 7 years together, so 70%. It's like I look back at that like we really could have started this whole thing sooner, but Peter Pan syndrome is a very real thing that's having effects, because think about a woman's biological clock. They can't withstand waiting. It's like no matter how much ideologies we like to discuss, the reality is your biological clock can't change.
When I was
so
when
that
I was
window is
yeah.
shrinking.
When I was dating,
Yes,
dating
Mia.
and going on dates and going on first dates, I had no time for the first date questions. I got straight to the nitty gritty. What's your relationship like with your mother?
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, what responsibilities do you take on at home? Like, do you pay your own bills? Do you have a car note? Do you own a home? Like I'm getting straight to it the first day because I don't have time to be wasting on what's your favorite color and
but that's-
what's your favorite
That's what I
title?
was talking about, you know,
Yeah.
getting down to it and kind of
I need to
setting
know,
that boundary
asking
for
questions that
yourself.
matter.
Because then you have a clear understanding of if this person is in that Peter Pan syndrome, if he's paying attention to what I'm saying, if he expects me to be, you know, the responsible one. So you're getting down to it and drawing that boundary, drawing that line in the sand one time.
Right, but okay, so let's get back to, okay, so in this context here, and in sharing personal stories, I feel as if my challenge is always the hopeless romantic, this category of Peter Pan, right? Where they're the hopeless romantic, they're a little fairy and they think about, and they always talk about, oh, you want to be married and you want to be this. But when they're with a very, you know, like an independent woman, for want of a better word, a woman who come in, and you're holding them, you're telling them, you write the check, cash it.
Yeah.
Right? Then those types of men, to me, that's another form of Peter Pan syndrome because now they don't have a plan. And that's my challenge. You don't have a plan. Right? So I just supposed to go along and just to finish and tie it up really quickly, you're supposed to go along with them. They don't have a plan and they just want you to be like, but what's the problem? You don't love me?
But then why are we associating ourselves with
Why are
men
we dating these kind of men then?
that
They are who
doesn't
they
fit
are.
our standard? They are who they are. Why are you trying to change the
Make
color
them
of the
fit
coin?
into
Why
something
That's
they
where you
want.
walk away. That's where you walk away
That
because
is
you
where
take
men-
your
most women
do
representatives.
not. Most women
do not.
because they put in the
Exactly.
time and effort into the relationship and into changing the man.
The thing is, they don't realize it's too late until it's too late. So you think that I'm pinpointing the woman and saying yes, but yes, it is your fault. You put yourself in that situation. Why are you throwing yourself in a well and then complaining and crying for help?
Well, because societal pressure. Because I think mothers pressure girls. I think society be like, how old are you? You ain't have a baby yet. So the pressure is there and women are not willing to risk it.
I don't
walk
think
away.
that's it anymore, though. I think generational, you know, that was like a generation thing where we took it back because in my family, we had that mentality where they babied the boys and the girls had to learn to cook. You had to learn how to run a household. I no longer do that. I stand on my own and I say, listen, he can take his own food out. He can you use that dish. You can wash that dish. I am not doing that. So I am putting myself in a position where I am not cornered or surrounded by men who have these traits of manolescence.
That's something I want to say as well, is that 50% of siblings report having like serious frustration with their siblings. Like just a few days ago, I happened to be speaking to someone who was telling me, I was telling her, you should really work on your relationship with your sisters because family is so important. And she said to me, honestly, Sarah, I cannot connect with my little sister. She is home vaping and playing video games all day. And she thinks because she's very pretty that she is just going to have some money. Man is just going to pick her up. And it's like, again, it's very similar to with what's going on with the men. Is there's no room, there's no recognition of room for growth.
Yeah.
You know?
And again, that's like the societal part, the part that society plays on it. It's okay. Society is now deeming it okay for somebody to stay at home and play video games all day. So it can be men, it can be women, and you're seeing it, yes, more prevalent in the younger ones where they think, and I think we were having this conversation, that these social influencers tend to be the ones that kind of fall back and say, yes, I want this privilege.
I can't wait to dig into that.
Gosh, well, we're talking about siblings, social influencers, and Peter Pan and all these men. We are going to break, and we're going to be right back.
Welcome back to All View, a Woman's Perspective. Things were getting a little bit heated. I heard a mention about the Wendy syndrome. So much happening, so I'll toss it back to our ladies and let's hear what we have to dive into a little bit deeper because I want to get more into this Wendy syndrome especially and how the personal experiences that we had to deal with kind of transcended into us having issues with some of the men that we would have faced with this manolescent traits.
I feel the most submerged in this because when I went to college, or where I went to college, is the global capital of Peter Pan syndrome. Like it is known. I went to College of Charleston in Charleston, South Carolina, and it is Peter Pan capital. Almost all the men there are over 40, unmarried, very, very, very wealthy and are dating college girls.
Wow.
And I had girlfriends that are dating men like this, and to them, they think it's so much fun. They think that they have this amazing lifestyle. The men don't want to settle down, so they don't really have a, any
I feel
sort
sorry
of
for
responsibility.
them hearing that. I'm like, they're
was
gonna
sorry
hit
for
the
them.
ground real hard
Yeah,
when
I
they
was
wake
sorry
up
for
from
them.
that dream.
And these men just recycle these young women, and it's truly
Yeah, because they come for 4 years and then they leave.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then they go back to the freshmen, and then they come back up to seniors. Then and they think they're gonna spend the rest of their life with them.
Yeah, but then we have to kind of dissect that is this what the women are looking for? Are you looking for
Correct.
that
No.
playfulness? Are you looking for a
So
sugar daddy?
that's the thing. It's like,
to
so there's a
take
place
care
for
of you?
adolescents then. So women want that.
Well, yeah.
So they're actually putting these men in the position to have me as a play toy because I want that sugar daddy and I want this playfulness because I'm in college. I'm here to have fun.
Is that more of a
but-
Wendy or a
I was
Tinkerbell
just about to
situation?
say. So then
Yeah.
let's shift it to Tinkerbell because like you look at Tinkerbell in the movie is like she's in love with Peter Pan. She disappears and she reappears. She's very sexy, and she's mischievous and she's fun.
And she's a little girlish. as
Yes,
well.
And then
and
she
Peter
has
Pan is
that
king of the
fun.
Lost Boys, huh? Remember, it's like, what are you really king of if you're king of the Lost Boys? Of all your loser friends, like, you know what I mean, who are also stuck in purgatory. Maybe that was a little harsh, but I'm just trying to say that, like, Tinkerbell also represents a fantasy. She's not real, right? I heard somebody say she's like the fairy of porn, because it's like men can just pull out their phone and like look at these influencers who are living these little Tinkerbell lives. They don't pay for anything. They're traveling all over the world. And granted, that might not be Trini influencers, but we still have access to that,
But
And
many
these women
times-
don't have to grow up. What do they
Many
look
times
like?
we see that the women that portray these Tinkerbell qualities, it's because they put themselves there. If you look at the movie, Tinkerbell is there because she wants to be there. She
Maybe,
is
but
putting
maybe
herself
women are also a
there.
victim too, because being so pretty and sexy and cute, certain opportunities finding themselves their way to you that are tempting and luring women down a wrong
I will
path
say
of
my-
immaturity. Same thing for men.
my friends that got caught up at this Peter Pan situation, they were freshmen. They came out of high school, not ever having come across a Peter Pan in their entire life. They say, "Oh, this older man that has a lot of money, he likes me, he loves me, he loves me. I'm so cute, and he like to party all the time and can drink and whatever." And then they get to graduation, and then they're thrown into the dude.
But I feel like that goes back to the idea of men are socialized to go and be responsible and make the money. Women are socialized for a long time, and it's shifting, right? It's shifting to go find an educated man, a successful man, and go and be good. Don't get a man, get married. Going back to the conversations we're having, they're socialized into that. So part of it also may be that some of them are not coming from solid homes where they got grounded in it. So yeah, their beauty and getting a man who come in with a nice car and all Peter syndrome. That is the only
Shazzy,
thing they know.
If this man presented himself to you,
Right.
and he's handsome, he's checking all the boxes, but he's giving a little Peter Pan vibe. He's running from his responsibilities.
So
Are you gonna be like, oh, he can change, she could da-da-da?
So my thing is that I am set in myself and I'm so comfortable in myself that if I see qualities that I'm at the age where if I see qualities in you, it might sound, a little difficult, but if I see qualities in you that does not correspond with the goal that I have, then I immediately count myself out. So that is what we're missing from women. They don't have the goals in mind. They're working towards it, yes, but they have not set that standard for themselves where they say, listen, you have traits that maybe we can't work together. It's meshing a little bit too much. So maybe we should just call it quits. But no, we women tend to get lost in ourselves and we tend to dream. So that is where the Wendy comes in, the fairy tale. Comes in, the Tinkerbell. That is where the fairy tale comes in, and you think, yeah, I can change him, or maybe we can work towards the same goals.
Spoken like a true Wendy, and I don't mean that in the sense of like you're cleaning up after men or you're enabling the Peter Pan. I mean it in the sense that look at Wendy as the character. She came from a middle class background in London. At the end of the movie, Peter goes, "Stay with me in Never Neverland and be my queen of the
But
Lost
at some
Boys."
time you have to
and Wendy
grow
was
up.
like, no, she understood her maturity. She wanted to go back home. So what did Wendy do in the end? She got married. She had children. She figured out her life because she accepted maturity. She accepted the sacrifice she had to make. Peter
that's what
Pan
I'm
did not.
saying.
He ended up being
So
king
we
of the
don't
Lost Boys forever.
We don't necessarily have to blame the men and say this is their fault. Maybe, just maybe, they're a victim in their own rights.
I think it's a bit of both.
Well, I would even like to add, and we're talking about Wendy and we're talking about the women in their lives. but the mothers, as I said, on board for the woman, putting pressure on them, and for the men. And in addition to, I just wanted to address for people listening the idea of relationships take work. You have to take your time, give the boy time to grow. So even like Shazi, you know, even though you know you're telling women, you know, like we are to fall, I think women get these messages that they can't have too many partners. Right? They can't have too many partners, so they start dating. And even if they're seeing traits, they're kind of socialized by just how women and mothers do boys to kind of work with them till they grow and not just jump out of relationships all the time. Every time jump. So I just saying that might be a reason why women sit down and waiting for the boy to grow up, because that's
I
how
think
mom
there's a
did our
difference between,
brothers.
you can see, look at some Peter Pans and say they're willing to recognize that they have lost ground to make up for. And then there's some that don't think there's a problem with what they're doing at all.
yeah, I
and
think we
those are the
shouldn't be-
difference between the ones that can change and the ones that I wouldn't dare set a toe.
Exactly.
And I think there's a difference between the ones that are victims and the ones that are villains, the ones that are choosing
true.
to live in that lifestyle, right?
It's like an unreality. It's not
Exactly.
reality.
And the thing is that if you, as a man, if you recognize that you are experiencing symptoms of Peter Pan syndrome and you don't do anything to change it, like accepting more responsibilities, making commitment to things that you normally wouldn't, right? Like how can you fix yourself and how can you make yourself better to your future partner?
Yeah, but then that is a key in acceptance. But then you have these men where it becomes generational, where it started way before you could have actually understand the terminology. Say, listen, I have a problem. You don't see the problem in you because it's embedded in you now that your mother started this with you. But we again kind of characterize the men in that group, but we don't see it wrong with women. And why is that the problem? Why do we not see these traits in women more prominently than we see it in men?
Yeah.
Is it that we're not willing to accept, to look at it?
It's something that is a very what that touches on what you're saying. That's very interesting. Again, I have to bring it back to Disney, right?
Yeah.
But we look at Captain Hook now, right? And Captain Hook is Peter Pan's example for an adult, right? And as I said, he's kind of this pathetic character. He's clueless. He's a bumbling. You know, he's running from this crocodile who already has a piece of him. Remember, the crocodile has his hand. So he's not a complete human. And he is just, Peter Pan is looking at him and going, hell no, I don't want that.
Exactly.
And so that's the thing, is that in life, a lot of the times there's a Captain Hook that Peter Pan is looking at, his example of adulthood, his generational wound.
Yep.
He is looking at that and going, I don't want that. And he doesn't even know that he's running from a hurt that has been inflicted, you know? And so he's scared of stepping into that. And again, we keep using male pronouns, but this could totally apply to women as well, an affair of adulthood, because they have a bad
and
example
that's what I'm
put in front
saying.
of them.
That's what I wanted
And how do they
to-
shed that?
Who do you think is usually the person, the Captain Hook in men's life, and who do you think is the Captain Hook in women's lives?
That, you see, that can kind of change, the perspective can change, because I feel like Captain Hook to me represents a figure that is trying to bring Peter Pan back and trying to tell you, listen, this is reality. You need to accept that. So that can be anybody
But
in your life.
who is scaring men and who is scaring women?
But that's
The
what I'm
father
saying.
Is it a
figure.
father?
To
Is
me,
it a
it's
mother
the
to
father
daughter?
figure. It's like what you would call the devouring father. And I don't want us to just get
But
lost
then
on
in
Disney
women-
terms forever. You know what
But
I
then
mean?
in a woman's perspective, in a
But-
woman's life, it's usually her mother that is the one that is
Correct.
hooking her
The
back to
devouring
reality.
mother.
Right.
Same thing. It
Yeah.
is. It's. We expect that as parents, it becomes this selflessness, but it's really hard as a parent to like make that shift for some people,
Can
and
I
especially in a
but-
very
can
narcissist
I-
me world, it can do a lot of damage to
Another
children.
perspective I think we're not talking about, and I'm going to be a little honest here. My Captain Hook is children. I think children is like such a humongous responsibility and a sign of growing up. I know that you have just had a child.
That's true.
How are you feeling? Not that you were Peter Pan, that you were Wendy or whatever, but like,
I definitely had some shades of
yeah.
that.
So, but like,
My
is
husband
that,
and I
is
are
that
both
scary?
nanny apps.
Is that
So
scary
we
to you?
both grew up and we both have hyper functional mothers. Like my mother-in-law will come over to babysit when I'm not around, when I go to work and stuff. She cleans my whole house. I come home and like my laundry's done and I'm like, Auntie, it's all good. Like, thank you. I mean, this is not me complaining now, Auntie. Please,
stop.
please, this is not me complaining. But I'm just saying, it makes me reflect now on the upbringing he has had. And then I literally have distinct memories of me turning to my mother and saying, Mom, you have to let me fall on my ass sometimes. Now, I did get a little licks because there's no cussing around my mother at all. She is she's a hard ass. Already I'm like getting PTSD just to saying these things. But I said, you need to let me fall on my ass sometimes because even as a teenager, I could see that I was getting a little stunted. And it is a lanyard thing. So being a lanyard, waiting so long to have children and having our own child for two of us in a house together was an adjustment, but in the best kind of way, because with kids you have no choice. You just have to get it together.
Yeah, but
there's a lot of fear mongering before that to make people scared to make that leap. And I just wish I could like bring those people 15 minutes into the future and be like, you'll love it. You know what I mean? But again, you can't push people. And I know Mia has that angst in her, so I understand. But
yeah, but then that's where the problem arises. Sometimes having that safety net is what causes some people to display these traits of manolescence because you have a safety net. I can fall at any time. There's people to pick me up. So I can be a little bit relaxed, unlike, you know, in a different situation where you have two people living in a relationship and they don't have any support. Let's say they probably started the relationship on a bad note. Both families are out, they don't want any part. They don't have that support, so then you find themselves they don't have the ability and that comfort zone to be and display traits of Peter Pan. So again, it boils down to a generational thing that kind of causes and embedded those traits in us. And that's where the problem arises.
I know Radiant is dying to say
Yes.
something. I'm going to go to
My
Nick,
ear is
but
open
please,
right
I
now.
want to hear Radiant.
No, I was just saying, you know, I think all of us have all these, you know, just call it the inner child period, all of these inner children. And really what we're talking about is maybe some trauma, some situations that people went through in childhood. And it could be the overbearing father, the absent father, the overbearing mother, the lack of mentors, you know, and these are things we talk. So then it manifests into these adult
Harmful
persons
things.
where and we're being hard on people. But going back to what you're saying, it manifests in these traits,
these harmful,
we have to
and
go
these
the right-
harmful things that definitely need to be talked about more. And I think we'll revisit that after the break.
Welcome back to Our View, a woman's perspective. We are discussing manolescence today, and Radiant was about to weigh in on a very salient point.
Yes, I feel like the last segment we were talking about, you know, almost like I did the victim and the villains. And I just wanted to really talk about, you know, that inner child, Harry. All of us have all these inner children where we got stunted at a certain age. And I think that's what we see it manifested in all ways. We're solving adult problems as the age of the child where our trauma happened.
Right.
But anyways, well, Sarah, what do you think?
I think it's important to actually play offense with a sense of urgency. Instead of just watching these men fading into the sunset and becoming problems, because the reality is like right now, we're thinking about, we're considering men our age, right? And women our age. But it's gonna get very ugly when their parents are no longer around. And when, like I said, we're looking at 40 and 50-year-old infants where, you know, they go to try and get a job and it's like, where's your job? What have you been doing for all these years?
My issue is,
you know?
does it necessarily always have to be a problem in the sense that you're saying, oh, it's going to become worse, but does it not have any positive side to it?
It sounds good
Because
to me.
I would believe that, you know, seeing men with these kind of childlike traits, they kind of bring spontaneity towards relationships.
Yes.
There are going to be positive sides that we are not addressing. So what about the positive sides?
If I decide to have children, I would love a man that is kind of connected to his inner child a little bit to connect with my children. You know, not just a
So-
serious, stoic, like grandfather
yeah.
figure. I don't really want that. You know,
And-
where's the fine line between?
between the
Listen,
positive and the negative.
Peter Pan is not a bad looking man, you know.
Yeah.
It's and it's like,
He's a smart
you know,
child.
and I just see it as like we've all had these experiences
Yeah.
with Peter Pan men or manolescence because there was appeal there.
Yeah.
We were obviously pulled in
Right.
by that spontaneity, that you know, that
Youthfulness.
exactly.
The youthfulness, and that's the point I was going to make. I think we have to make room for the woman who wants the Peter Pan. because she has Peter Pan syndrome herself.
But
So
my
she wants to
issue
just
is,
go through
again,
her entire
right?
life with somebody that happy and that
She wants a
experimental
man-child.
and
I mean,
adventurous.
you do you,
And she
sis.
may not want kids.
I don't
because
mean
now
to
women
argue
don't
your
want kids.
point, and I
Yeah,
hear what
no.
you're saying, but again, we keep redressing back to men, 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 men. What about the woman that represents this? Because I just think that because of the fact that we don't mention it does not mean it is not there. So we see in more of a sense where men are being targeted and women have a voice and they complain about their men portraying manolescent qualities. But then when you have men experiencing it, they are not allowed to speak up because the majority is against them. So what about the woman? What about the woman? I mean, we're looking at positive and negative. How does the positive how does it affect both sides, men and women? Because there are men dealing with women who suffer with the Peter Pan, or shall we call it Polly Pan, or however we want to term it.
We're recording that here on
Man
our
children.
Yeah.
Let me just say man
Man
children
child.
and woman children.
And woman children.
You know, and the thing is, I think a big gap there is media representation. Like we especially even on social media, we're just seeing these people who want to live like they're young forever, and we're not being exposed to like responsible and healthy masculinity, healthy femininity, healthy adulthood, growing into these things and taking on these responsibilities.
Also, the
you
physical
know?
part of that, looking young forever.
Correct.
It also plays into that as
You're
well.
drinking from
Yeah.
that fountain of
Right.
youth because you feel that. But then, too, people
Your
tend
actions
to
should be
think.
felt.
Yeah.
People tend to think that, okay, a man dressing a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that he portrays traits and qualities of Peter Pan. But then, how does your mindset not mature as you go along? You're not going to wear a bib at 30 years old, no? Your mindset has changed from the time you were a child to now. So then why does your mindset not change into the way you dress, the way you carry about yourself? So I think that generally every single one of us have a little bit of Peter Pan in us.
And everybody has a little bit of room to grow. Sorry, baby.
Yeah.
You know, I agree with that. Like I said, it's the admission of room to grow that is the difference between the people who I don't see a good future for them and the people where I see there's hope for them.
Recognition.
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to add is that I think a big conversation, and it happened a lot during the pandemic too, a big conversation was around men needing male mentors, men going to therapy, because one of the things that is with this Peter Pan syndrome on the other side is the inability to handle conflict, the self-sufficiency that could look like, oh, he's very independent, but really what it is that he can't be vulnerable. So you have all of these things going on where in terms of solutions, if these men kind of work towards
And I think we
getting
do
support.
need to start
and-
looking towards solutions
Yeah,
because the issue is
exactly.
that it becomes stigmatized that, oh, men, they're going to therapy. And why are they going to therapy? But
Exactly.
when they get better for you, you're the one benefiting. So, and I think most instances, we have women actually targeting men and belittling them for things that they're doing to better
Emasculating
themselves
them.
until it benefits you. You don't see the benefit in it until it benefits you.
And Shaz, go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, I think that a key way that we can move that in a positive direction is just encouraging couples to embrace open communication. You know, there's a lot of a lot of that immaturity ends up playing out, as I was saying earlier, with conflict resolution and not being forthright with each other, not being able to communicate with each other, especially as we're always in our phone. Literally, just like consider that a muscle that you need to work out is sitting down, having face-to-face conversations with your partner where you are being sincere
And recognize.
and you're not running from things. So.
And no worries. And recognize who is infantilizing you. If your man, it's your mother, create a healthy boundary with her, right?
That
also
is
for the
true.
sake of your
Exactly.
marriage or your
Yeah,
relationship,
exactly.
you need a healthy
That's just an
relationship.
example, but yeah, check who's
I will say this, mothers, stop babying your sons. He is 34 years old. He can take out his own food. He can look after himself. And I think that's where it starts. That's where we have the root of the issue sometimes going back to that childhood phase where he's being smothered, not mothered. It is
Smothered, like some smothered pork. And I just really want to say, going back to Shazzy's point, that in a relationship or any relationship to flourish, we all have to take the onus. You be the change you want to see. So as a woman, if you're in that situation, you go deal with yourself. You go get your therapy. And men, you go get your therapy. Get some male mentors. And then if we are both striving to be grounded individuals, then we may be able to show up better to support each other.
I think it's about finding a balance. Like, I look at what you're saying, Shazzy, and I totally understand that mama's boy dynamic can be very frustrating. But I don't know, maybe it's because I have a son now, you know. I also think that it's important that we tell men, like, it's okay, like, men do go to their mothers for that nurturing force as well. You know what I mean? And we have to also tell men that's okay too. But it is about finding a balance because you need to step into your masculinity. Like I think about I think about when you go to let's say great men in society, their funeral, like what are the traits that they talk about with these men? They talk about their resilience, their bravery, they were protectors, they were providers. You know what I mean? They had integrity. Like these are positive models of masculinity that are not being pushed on our young men right now.
I hear what you're saying, but you carry this perspective now because you have a son. What about your past experiences where you had to deal with a mama's boy and it wasn't comfortable for you then? Now you carry a different perspective.
I just don't want to
I think
tell
you're
men that
blurring
there's
the
no
line.
space for that. Like
That-
I think
you're
men need to
blurring
go
the
to that.
line between
Right.
being
Perception.
a mother
Right.
and being smothered. Being mothered and being smothered. I think you're blurring the line because you have a son now.
And
there is no need. We don't have to blur the line. We can call it what it is. We can call it two sides of a coin. And you have your mother taking care of you, and you have your mother still giving you that love without smothering you and teaching you that this is the way I'm supposed to be treated.
Exactly, and let me just say, mama's boys have some great traits. You know what I mean?
True.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's
Correct.
important for us to remind the audience that, you know, like the Peter Pan syndrome, as they said, they have some great traits. Mama's boys, sometimes they're nurturing.
They love a woman,
They're
too.
good with giving you your medicine. Some of them is cook. Some of them have those nurturing traits. They're buying flowers versus kind of like maybe the alpha male type. But so these traits are on a spectrum, and you're going to get some things you like that going to hook you.
I think
That's gonna hook you and keep you
sorry.
there. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that what we can all agree on is that whether it's balanced or imbalanced or what, the key here is just being able to hold up a mirror. Whether
Hold
you're a
up and
man or a
recognize.
woman,
I agree.
just holding up a mirror and having a candid conversation with your partner, with your friends, and people will reflect back to you the truth and listen to them instead of reacting defensively. Which, as I keep coming back to, that's the issue with these Peter Pan men, these man children, is they are not giving themselves room to grow because they think they're fine. And the women too, it's about me, 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 me. You know, and I'm doing everything right, and it's my world, and everybody else is just orbiting.
Yeah, so it's not a problem until it becomes a problem. So once your circle is encouraging that, then you don't see the issue. It's only, let's say, when you get into a relationship and you have that different perspective of someone seeing you live that life a certain way, and they're like, no, I'm not accustomed to that. Then you get the problem arising, or you have the Peter Pan syndrome.
And you know what? When they realize all their friends get married and they're Peter Panning by themselves, a lot
Correct.
of
When
men
they're
get
left in the
forced adulting. Like they look around, they're like, oh, where my lost boys? They're gone. So
I want to hear your. Now, I feel like I'll start with Shazi because I feel like it's been like I've been enjoying what you've been
Banter.
stoking the fire
Yes.
with, and now that we've kind of all exchanged this, I want to hear your final takeaways on this as we've kind of seen this evolution of it.
Yeah, so I just wanna, leave you guys with a message that Peter Pan syndrome, it is real. I mean, it is not clinically diagnosed. So maybe if you see that trait in someone or yourself, do a little bit of research. There are ways that you can deal and counteract these problems.
Yeah, and to bounce off of that, self-reflection is so important. Take a step back from yourself, take a step back from your relationship and analyze. Am I not maturing like the way that I need to? Am I not accepting the responsibilities that I need to? Create healthy boundaries with the people around you that are infantilizing you and keeping you in the same place. We all should be moving forward and maturing through life.
yeah, and I think I just want to speak to mothers, and I want to say, thank you to mothers for the phenomenal job they do. And then when they have their boy child, I know they feel very close to their boy child. But I just want to say to mothers that we want your son to be good partners, and we want to take care of them a long time. But sometimes, it's a little difficult when they're so spoiled and pampered and they come in with their whole list of demands, and we're like, when is my list of demands getting answered? So I
We're supposed
just,
to end on a positive note, man. You're like, where's my list of demands, guys?
oh, good, yeah, I just said, yeah, no, I just saying, mothers, we appreciate the support, and we hope we can all partner in this segment. Yes.
I think it's about, for me, after having this conversation with you guys, we got very granular in small things, but I think there's value in just taking a bigger step back and looking at it on a longitudinal way of like, everybody has to make a sacrifice in their life. Nobody makes it out without doing that. And these people are basically prolonging making that sacrifice. And for me, I think you need to be proactive and take the bull by the horns and choose your sacrifice.
Yeah.
Like figure out, okay, this is what has to go on. I have to give up this freedom. I can't do this forever, you know, because when you wait and you prolong making that sacrifice, it gets ugly. It gets harsh. It gets brutal. And you pay for it in spades. So I think it's all good and fun. We can talk Disney, we can talk all these things and girls and boyfriends and da-da-da. But the reality is you're looking at a very bleak future, you know, if you don't stop and recognize there's room for growth. If you do, the world is your oyster.
This has been yet another episode of Our View, A Woman's Perspective. I want to say thank you so much going out to our co-host, my co-host, for having that knowledge and for giving me the arguments that I need and getting our topic across, our minds across on one table. Thank you so much, ladies. And you can tune in next week for yet another episode of Our View, A Woman's Perspective.